Well, I'm excited to welcome all of you to Followed by Mercy. This will be the most unique podcast we've done since we started. I'm joined by three of my best friends, Robert Canfield, and then my two sons, Chris and David. And we're sitting around, we're discussing with you today and just chewing the fat over Matthew, where Jesus said in chapter 11, "Take my yoke upon you, come learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in spirit." And I think that too often, very few people really work at learning about Jesus. We are almost afraid of him, I think, because he is so nice. And so let me just let these guys greet you first, and then we will start up a conversation there. Go ahead, David.
Hello, I'm David.
So these are guys are really funny.
Chris Gardner, excited to be sharing this passage today. Looking forward to it.
Hello out there. This is Robert Canfield. It's a pleasure to be on here and talking with my best good friends in the whole wide world.
All right, so we'll start there. Chris, you just made a comment about how rich the passage was. So I want you to crank it up and tell us something.
Well, I love, there's two imperative verbs in there. He's basically saying, hey, in verse 28, I love it. He starts off and he goes, hey, come to me all you that labor and are heavy laden. And, I don't know who in this world does not consider that to be where they're at now. We live in a world with constant information and everything. And then he goes, after you're going to come to me, he says, I want to give you rest. And then he says something that seems almost opposite of rest. He says, hey, I want to give you rest, so take my yoke. A yoke, we look at a yoke as something that is a burden, that is, something that ties a person down. But he says, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. And so that's going to change our view of the yoke when we take that and start learning of him, because what we learn in this passage are some pretty powerful things. One of the things we learn is that rest isn't the absence of work. It's the presence of the right teacher. And so what he's saying is, listen, understand that I am the one that you're supposed to pay attention to. You are supposed to be yoked to me. And when you do, that does not give you a list of things to do. It provides the rest that you have been looking for. In the social media age that we work in, you're going to be, scrolling through stuff, and you'll look at it and it's hey, I'm not a good mom. I'm not a perfect mom. I'm not a perfect dad because on this video I saw, or I'm not a great preacher because on this I saw. There's a yoke that is constantly placed on us in this information age we live in. But rest isn't the absence of work. It's the presence of the right teacher. And so, anyway, I would say one other quote that I love about this passage is this: Jesus doesn't just save us from sin. He saves us from self-striving. He doesn't just save us from sin. He saves us from self-striving. Yes, you're saved from sin, but you're also
discuss
saved.
What you mean by self-striving.
We always think we have to do one more thing to be okay. We always think we've got to do one more thing. And what he's saying is this.
We don't think God loves us as we are.
No, not at all. If we want to be loved, we've got to produce, we've got to, we have our quarterly review with our Father in heaven that says, you didn't do good, check here, X here, you got to do better. That's kind of the view of our Father that's so messed up. The truth of the matter is, he looks at us and he says, I love you. I gave my life for you, and I want you to learn that from me. And you'll learn that as you take on a yoke of presence with him. So I don't know. That's some good stuff to start with, but I'll pass this mic over here to David now, because he'll have some great stuff to say.
No, that's one of the interesting things, is that this is one of the really only passages where Jesus and God describes his own heart. And so the reason that his yoke is easy, his burden is light, the reason that he says to come to him, to take a yoke, is because of his treatment of us. So he's meek. Meekness is gentleness, kindness, sweetness, tenderness, and lowly in heart. And so he's not only gentle and kind, though he's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, he's also lowly in heart, which means that he is accessible. Kings are far away, kings are elevated, kings are distant, but people that are lowly in heart are people that are accessible. And so Jesus meets us where we're at, and he is lowly in heart, meaning that we can approach him, we can be close to him. And his,
So we're talking about us as pastors and Sunday school teachers and Christian leaders. He said, "Learn of me." So take us down that road just a second.
yeah, and I think that's the point of him saying, "Come learn of me," is that this is who I am, and you have the freedom to learn of me through this, like through my heart, and you're supposed to learn to be like me. And so, I think in today's society and culture is that, leadership is emphasized, and leadership, worldly leadership can emphasize, power, dominion, authority. Worldly leadership can emphasize these, characteristics, but I don't think any type of leadership would be emphasized in be meek, be lowly, be accessible to those around you. And so Jesus says, "Come to me, learn of me." This is the type of shepherd that I am.
I think sometimes preachers like to. I mean, people even think, "I want a preacher that kicks hard against sin."
Yeah, that's interesting. Every time that I preach, any message that might even be taken, rough or as, very confrontational, I always have at least one church member that goes, "Man, that was a good message. We need more of that." They don't necessarily like the gentle stuff because I don't think they find it useful. They want to be, challenged and pushed. But, when you see Jesus, he's meek and lowly in heart. And that, means that he can confront, sin. He can confront Pharisees. He can confront religious leaders and be quite rough. But even then, he's being meek and lowly in heart.
All right, there, Robert. What have you like to add into all of that?
Talk about learning of him. I guess I was read through this chapter, chapter 11. So like John Baptist is in prison. He sends his disciples there, and they come and ask Jesus, are we looking for somebody else? And then Jesus is like, "Look at all the stuff I've done. What'd you come out here to see?" And then he goes and he makes these statements. He says, "But whereunto shall I liken this generation? It's like children sitting in the markets and calling unto their fellows and saying, We've piped unto you, and you haven't danced. We've mourned unto you, and you haven't lamented. For John, he came neither eating or drinking." And they said he had a devil. "The Son of Man comes eating and drinking." And they said, "Behold, look, this guy's glutton. He's a winebibber. He's a friend of publicans." And he says, "Just look at my deeds, and that's going to justify it." He says at the end, he says, "But wisdom is justified in her children." And then he goes in and he starts chiding them. He doesn't chide them, but he's talking to the people. He starts talking to these cities. It's all in the same passage. He starts saying, "Woe to you, woe there in Chorazin." And he's talking about what he's doing and what the works that Christ has done. And then he goes and he says, "Learn of me, for I am meek and lowly." And as I'm looking through this and I'm trying to see the reason and the purpose in all this is that Jesus was talking to a group of people, and he was demonstrating, he was showing his kingdom. And a lot of times when we think a person in leadership, like what was already stated, is a person that is very organized, very in control. But Jesus was talking about what he was doing, and it was like a big party where he was at. That's what he was saying. He said, "You guys say that I'm hanging out with guys that are glutton. I'm hanging out with partiers and sinners." And what he was really trying to get at is that people's lives were literally being changed in this, and his demeanor and his personality, his character, is that of one that wants to enjoy and not be burdensome, if that makes sense. And that's what the end of that verse. At verse 28, he says, "Come unto me, all you are labored and heavy laden." And he's like, there's a current system in the world right now that's causing a lot of pressure, and it's causing a lot of trouble, and it's causing a lot of anxiety amongst people. And he says, "I want you to learn of me, because where Jesus is, there's peace." And he is meek. He's gentle. He's not harsh. He's not cruel. He's not looking to destroy and hurt people. He's looking to lift people's up. I love that song. He's the lifter of my head. I mean, he's bringing our head up where sin brought down shame, and where everyone's looking for this I guess, system where they can get beat up or something like that, and they have to put their head down and they have to walk around in shame. Jesus is the lifter of our head, and he's that gentle, he's that laid back, low. He is not the high guy that people are looking for. He is just the humble guy that's like a friend that you have a good time with. And I don't think we think Jesus is that, because whenever you're around those friends that you can just be normal with and be with, and just they know that they care about you no matter what. I mean, you're at peace. But when you're around that other person that's looking to condemn and judge, I mean, that's when you get like, I gotta act into a certain way.
I think that one of the most beautiful things is what you just mentioned, it not a classroom, it's a relationship. It's not a program, it's a person. So Jesus isn't saying, come sit down here and be my disciples. He's saying, come walk with me, live with me. I don't want you to memorize facts. I want you to know my heart. I want you to know how I am. I'm not giving you a self-help program, not giving you a religious formula. I want you to know me. Chris?
It's hard. There's a couple of passages that come to mind when we're talking about this. The command of John 15. A lot of people take it as, hey, look at fruit, look at fruit, look at fruit. But that's not what it is at all. It's all about abiding. And so when, we learn here that we don't succeed by striving, we succeed by abiding. And so it's about literally our presence with him, not our performance for him, is what grows us in our Christian walk. And that doesn't mean there's not going to be fruit.
People turn abiding into work.
Yeah.
Abiding is a work. That's not correct. Go ahead and explain what abiding is.
Abiding is just is staying. And by the way, the branches don't do anything to abide.
And they don't sit around going, I got to work at abide.
Yeah, at all. Work at abide. Did I read my 3 chapters today of the Bible? That's not at all what they're sitting there going. They're going, man, what a precious thing that I get so much from that which I abide in. And so, and the other passage that I love looking at, and I think that needs to accompany here, is Psalm chapter 25. It says, verse 4, it says, show me thy ways, O Lord. Teach me thy paths. And I believe that when he's saying that, this is something that's caught, not taught. And how do you catch it? Well, you catch it in a yoke. Take his yoke upon. Decide you're going to just be with him and love him and be close to him. And don't worry. There's things that I do nowadays, and when I do them, nobody doubts that I'm my father's son.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And so it doesn't matter what you do, where you go. You are, hey, Chris, you are your father's son. Why? Because I'm 50 years old now. That didn't feel good to say that, but I'm 50 years old now. But you're at the age of 50, I've spent more time out of the house than I have in the house by a long shot. But I'm telling you, no matter where I'm at, people go, wow, he's his father's son. And in the same way, we have to understand, we catch. Things are caught, not necessarily even taught. We think if we spend more time in Logos Bible software, if we spend more time in the scriptures, we have this list of what we think are God's demands. God doesn't demand that of us. When you have proximity to him and not performance for him, your proximity will just automatically create in you a heart after his, and will change everything about the way that you live your life.
That's funny that you say the just spending time with them, because Jesus, in the same passage, in that same paragraph, he talks about how God the Father, who is Lord in heaven and earth, he said he has hid things from the wise and the prudent. Like, Jesus is talking to a group of people here, and he's letting them know that the people that have their own systematized disciplines in order to figure out the truth and stuff like that, he says God's hid it to you, but he's actually revealed it to little babes. And like, babes can't really do anything except for spend time and rely on their parents. And it's kind of like what you just said with the abiding in the vine, and we're the vine, he's the branch, or we're the branches. How's that go? Yeah, I'm the vine, you're the branches. That's
good. Here we are talking about these passages, and you can't quote it. Come on.
Yeah.
Jump in here.
John 15, whoever. But yeah, it's. I think that's exactly what Jesus is saying. Is God? He hid stuff from those people that had the wise and the prudent, the ones that were wise in their own mind. They already had their own systematized disciplines, And he's like, yeah, I'm not revealing that to you. I'm revealing it to babes.
They're the better strivers.
Well, I mean,
See, one of the things I notice about the people that Jesus most rejects, they're so much like what I have been so much of my life. It's always about, I'm doing better than you. And the way I decide how well I'm doing, even in abiding, is I abide better than you. Maybe I don't abide all I ought to abide. I abide better than you do. And so I mean, I read more Bible. I knock on more doors. I preach more times. So I'm really abiding.
I give more. I do this. I do that. I would abstain from things.
And I think that becomes, and Jesus saying here, come learn of me. Stop learning of the Pharisees.
Yeah, and what I love, the cultural context of this is that rabbis used yoke to mean their interpretation of the law. So when they were talking about taking a yoke upon you, it was like, hey, here's all of the rules and here's all of the interpretation. Hey, take this yoke upon you because I know the truth and I am following the truth. And if you'll just do all of these things, Jesus offers an interpretation that is so countercultural to everything.
My way of doing it ain't their way of doing it.
Yeah, he's so countercultural. It's like a 180. So Jesus offers his interpretation. His interpretation is, says this, listen, this is not more rules. This is more relationship. I want you close to me. I love you. I'm about to go on a vacation with my wife, and we're going to drive my car to Texas. It's 15-hour drive. You say, why would you do that? I get to sit in a car with the woman that I love with all of my heart, and we just get to talk for 15 hours, spend time with each other. We don't have much of that. We have children at home. We have friends of our children at the house. There's always things going back and forth. I told her, I said, we're going to turn our phone off for 10 hours while we're driving out there. We're just going to drive and not even care.
I don't know if we believe you're going to do that.
Yeah, we'll see if I do it or not. But Jesus' interpretation says this. When you hear the word yoke, you hear, hey, here's a new list of rules. When I was growing up, I used to think I was so holy because I obeyed these rules. And then I would hear somebody that had one rule that I didn't. I was like, oh man, I need to add that one to my list.
Or they're a legalist.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I don't even ever think they were a legalist. I thought, man, I need to be more like them. And so, oh, these people didn't do this. That person didn't do this. So I would, as I was traveling as a young man through all these churches, I had a list of 73 things. And then, oh, you forgot these two and you'd add two more. That was what the rabbis did. And Jesus says, I'm going to use their same vernacular. I want to use their same words. But that when I say the yoke, what I want you to understand that yoke is, hey, I'm with you in the good and the bad. Our marriage vows. I'm with you in the good and the bad. I'm with you no matter what comes your way. So his interpretation is this. It's more about relationship than it is anything else. And so I believe our common mistake is we try and share the yoke with him while we drag our own yoke. And his invitation is this: drop everything you've got because I didn't give it to you, and come join me in my yoke. And what he's saying is it's the whole shepherd. Hey, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. I don't need to carry my wants with me. I don't need to carry my desires with me. I don't need to carry my fears with me. I carry my relationship inside of this yoke. And I'm sure David has some good stuff to say about that too.
No, I think it's interesting. You know, I spoke with somebody just this past week, and they said, man, yeah, I'd much rather the God of the New Testament than the God of the Old Testament. And
he hasn't changed a bit.
Thinking that the God of the Old Testament's a mean one. But then, you know, when you're looking at Exodus and Moses says he wants to see his glory. You know, he says, I want you to see my glory, or I want to see your glory. I want to see what you're like. And the Lord, you know, passes by on Mount Sinai, and Exodus 34 says, and the Lord passed by before him and proclaimed. And so before I read the rest of the verse, it's God is declaring his own glory. God is declaring his own character. The first thing that Moses is going to see and the first thing that Moses is going to hear about seeing God in his glory is the Lord God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering and abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children unto the third and to the fourth generation. And it's just so interesting, right? That God in all his glory, his glory that shines on Moses is so powerful that when Moses comes down off the hill, his face is literally shining. People have to cover his face to even speak to him. And what he saw was the Lord God, merciful, long-suffering, gracious, abundant in goodness and truth. He keeps mercy for thousands, but only visits the sin upon the third and fourth generation. And a lot of people want to look at it and go, man, he visits the sin upon the third and fourth generation. Well, that's if they continue in it. But even then, in his mercy, it's only the third and fourth. But he's
can I also remind
thousands.
This, he doesn't just let sin slide. He comes and pays for it.
Yeah.
He says, I'm merciful, and I just can't let sin go.
Yeah.
So I'll come and die for it.
He's merciful, but he's not unrighteous in it. Like there's still a payment for the sin. And so, when you see in the Old Testament that Moses sees God's glory, what he sees first is the Lord, merciful, gracious, abundant and long-suffering, and all these beautiful things about God. That's his glory. When he reveals himself, he doesn't say the Lord, holy, holy, which he is. He is 3 times holy. He is, holy and separate for sure. But that's not what he reveals to Moses. It doesn't say, righteous. It doesn't say, just. It says merciful, abundant. Those are the things that Moses walks away with.
And the same thing here he's saying in that passage, Jesus says, I want you to learn of me. And he self-describes himself as meek and lowly, humble. Robert?
In that passage, like 2 verses ahead of it, or a couple verses ahead of it, Jesus says, I thank my Father, the Lord of heaven, because thou hast hid those things from the prudent and wise, thou hast revealed them unto the babes. Verse 26 says, even so the Father, for it seemed good in thy sight. All things are delivered unto me of my Father, and no man knoweth the Son. No one knows the Son, he says, except the Father. But the Father. Neither knoweth any man the Father. No one knows the Father, except save the Son, and he to whomsoever the Son will reveal him. And so what Jesus was doing is in that passage, he was it was a revealing party of who God was. And he was just showing him, this is who I am. I'm coming to bring peace.
I don't think
I'm not bringing
that.
What's that?
I know you and I believe that, but the religious crowd, we don't believe that. We see God as austere and mean.
I get kind of a bad attitude about the religious crowd, but then I got to know that I'm not their judge. They're not my servants. But people like
I've
to
been
make
guilty of it myself.
and I have too. But people like to be noticed, and people like to think that they have the answers, and people like to think that they have everything you need to do for your life, and you need to come to me, and I'll take care of you. And I got my list of rules to help you out. And what Jesus was declaring in that moment is, no, you guys need to learn of me. I've got the answers. I've got real peace.
And I know the Father.
And that's who I'm revealing to you. I'm revealing to the Father to you guys. And when you think about it, and I have a hard time whenever you sit down and you listen to preachers and they preach principles and they preach and they teach all these different things, and they never point back to Jesus.
Or they don't mean to be, but they have become very man-centered. It's what you do, not what he did.
It's humanistic. I don't know if you could. It's man-centered humanism that's crept into our churches. And like the point of Christianity is we are followers of Jesus, but yet so many times he doesn't even get noticed. And so many times is his character not even displayed or put on display. And like in every, and this is maybe I'm just talking to preachers, but even in our conversation, every time we should be just pointing back to Jesus. What's Jesus done in your life? Who is he? I mean, it's a sweet, like you said, it's a sweet relationship, and it's a sweetness. And we're supposed to be talking about him. And I don't know, I get kind of excited about that. But yeah, exactly what David was saying, how God revealed himself. It's right here in that passage. He's like, the Father's revealing it to me, and then he says, come unto me. So I think that's awesome how this all ties together.
I think this is a fantastic. I'm going to interrupt the conversation and start another podcast for tomorrow. But
I'll just like to finish saying, isn't it interesting that Moses sees God on Sinai, and he hears the Lord's words, and then Moses gets the testimony of being the meekest man of them all. Like, he's meek.
Oh, that's a good point.
So Moses' result of seeing God's glory is that encountering God's glory is meekness.
No,
And then
but
Jesus
we
says,
don't
"Come
do
to
that
me,
anymore.
learn from me. I'm meek and
I know
and lowly."
God, and I'm meaner than anybody.
Well, here, so very interesting thing is this passage is the only passage in the Bible where Jesus describes his heart. So
I'm sure you checked that out. I
did.
I didn't even think about that. That's good.
I read it and I was like, "There's no way," and I started looking, and it's the only
that's
passage in the
beautiful. That's
Bible.
beautiful.
The door, he says he's the shepherd. He says, but he never talks about his character.
He describes his heart.
Oh,
The only time
that's
he
good.
describes his heart, he says, "Listen, let me tell you how I describe it." And when I say describe, when you're doing something, when I go to school to pick up my son, I have to say, "Hey, I identify as Joshua's father." So when I walk into the schoolroom, they don't care that I'm a pastor. They don't care that I do wealth management. They don't care that I have businesses that I'm involved in. They don't care about any of that. They care about one thing. I describe myself. And so when I describe myself in church on Sunday, I play the guitar. So I'm a musician for that morning. And so Paul does the same thing. Hey, in this book, I'm going to describe myself as this. He chooses what he describes himself as. Jesus in his 3 years says, I want to describe myself one time. And when I choose to describe myself, I'm going to describe myself as meek and lowly. And that is the posture that we are called to lead from. So we have to do that. We have to lead from that, nothing else but that. And what we have to understand is this. If you're not careful as a pastor, as a Sunday school teacher, as a missionary, some of us are more committed to leading for God than learning from God. And it shows. And it shows. May those that look on us see in us that which Jesus described about his heart.
So going back to what you said is like, Jesus has called himself the door. He's called him. He's made descriptions of like who he like characteristics. But in this passage, you get to crack open God and actually see the motive and the reasons behind who he is and what he's described himself. You get to find out like the inner person.
Yeah,
that's what you're stating right here. Like, because like I can say it. My name's Robert. I'm a husband. But there's a lot of deadbeat husbands. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Jesus was like displaying in that passage, this is who I am. I'm gentle.
Yeah.
I'm meek. And I haven't elevated myself. My heart's not lifted up and prideful. I mean, we know that he's exalted. He is the King of Kings. But he was saying his heart is lowly. He's like, he cares about the commoner. He cares about people. I want to bring you peace. And that's, I mean, when you were saying that, just like, it's like a I don't know if it's epiphany or if that's the right word, but like you think about God calls himself a lot of different things, but this was actually displaying the intent, the heart behind everything.
Yeah. And Jesus modeled this. His examples of Jesus' teaching is he modeled it. He didn't stand up and go, let me give you the best sermon you've ever heard on service. He said, let me wash your feet. He told stories. He took wrapped deep truths into these parables that people could relate to. He had proximity to them. He taught on the road. Jesus could have easily transfigured himself from one position to the other, to go to one place to the other, but he decided to teach on the road, in the boat, at the table, because learning was woven into his life. And so even when Peter failed, Jesus restored him before recommissioning him. We talk about Judas all the time. When Jesus is washing feet, did you know that he says he was washing the disciples' feet, but there's only two people that are named by name? The one that is going to turn him in to be killed, and the one that is going to say he didn't recognize him. And he gives those two names. I believe that when he says Judas and Peter, when he does that, I think the author, I think the writer, I believe that God through God leading him to write what he wrote, what he was saying was, remember the context around these two people. By the way, Jesus is not going to be surprised at what Judas is going to do.
Of course not.
Yet he's on his knees in front of him.
Why did he do it?
Serving him because he was meek and lowly.
Because he's gentle God.
Think about this for a second. Think about washing the feet of the disciples. Think about washing the feet of the disciples. If he takes 3 minutes per foot, that's 72 minutes of washing feet. If he takes 1 minute per foot, that's 24 minutes. That's a half an hour almost of him washing feet. Can you imagine he's sitting there washing, massaging, cleaning. Judas is looking down at him, and he's looking up at Judas going, you're not going to surprise me, but I am meek and lowly, and I love you. Peter, you will deny me. Let me wash your feet, buddy. And so you see that in him. It's just, it's amazing.
And he tells us in that same passage he says, learn and take up that yoke, like be in co-service, be in co-partnership of doing this together with me. Yeah. And so like it goes back to our motives. It goes back to our heart of what we're doing, why we're doing it, in the sense of like, do we have that meek and lowly hump? I mean, like that, I don't see, I went back to a rule, right? But like, I look at it and I'm like, how can you see a God that does that? You know what I'm saying? How can you see a God who's that gentle, who's that great and wonderful? And how could that not make you want to be the same way?
Well, I want to break here and so we can record again for tomorrow. But before we do, and so we'll continue right on this, but I wanted to let David say this. David and I were talking the other day, and he made a comment. He said, how can people get to know God more and more and become meaner and meaner? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Well, we were speaking, specifically about one situation, and, I'm turning 40 this year, and, I feel like I'm just getting started in my Christian walk. I feel like there's so much that I've got to grow in, but I know that God's changed me. I'm a completely different man than I was, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And when I look at men of God, quote unquote men of God that are older than me, that have been around longer than me, and instead of them being softened through the years, instead of them being sweeter and kinder and more humble, they get meaner and meaner. They get harsher and harsher. Their tone doesn't change, and I think a lot of times from young people we can expect that there's a lot of fire, but there's not a lot of gentleness. But the older we get, we find...
Because fire is what preaching is.
Yeah.
And gentleness is not what we expect from a man of God.
There's plenty of sons of thunder, that want to call down... They want to call down fire from heaven to burn them. The funny thing about the sons of thunder is that they had enough faith to call fire down from heaven, but just a chapter earlier, they didn't have enough faith to get a demon out of a little boy, because they have that meanness in them. And I don't understand, if we're truly following Jesus and we are becoming more like him, then we're becoming more meek, more lowly, more humble, more accessible.
If we abide,
sweeter, kinder.
If we hang around in him all the time.
Yeah.
If we rub elbows with him.
Yeah. And so I don't know if people are just coming to the Word and trying to find things to attack other people. I don't know if people are coming to the Word trying to grow.
Let's give them the benefit that they love God, and but maybe they're in a classroom and not in a relationship.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe they're coming just for knowledge. Maybe they're just coming to find, the next rules to keep. But they're trying to follow Jesus' ways without being close to his heart.
Well, I want to talk to you more about that with all of us. We're just going to take a break. We're recording it now, but so that you don't have so much for one day. We'll be back tomorrow with more of this. Share it and invite some other people to come and be with us.